Gary Cooper confessed it all. In the note he left behind that changes everything, Gary Cooper was born. Frank James Cooper on May 7, 1901, in Helena, Montana. He grew up surrounded by the rugged beauty of the American West, a landscape of wide-open skies, sprawling ranches, and untamed wilderness that would later profoundly shape the characters he portrayed. His early life was steeped in the culture of ranching, horseback riding, and outdoor adventure, experiences that left him with an authentic ease and natural grace that few actors could convincingly replicate on screen. Cooper did not originally envision a life in Hollywood. After attending school in England and later studying at Grinnell College in Iowa, he returned to Montana following an injury that prevented him from continuing his athletic pursuits. It was during this time that he began sketching and writing, exploring the creative interests that had long fascinated him. A move to Los Angeles in the mid-1920s, intended as a brief stay to pursue illustration work, instead opened the door to the world of film. Thanks to his genuine horsemanship and calm demeanor, he quickly found work as a stunt rider and extra in silent westerns, unaware that these modest beginnings would bloom into one of the greatest careers in cinema history. By the late 1920s and early 1930s, Cooper's talent, charisma, and quietly magnetic presence had caught the attention of major studios. His breakthrough roles brought him national attention, and as talking pictures arrived, his warm, slightly hesitant voice, so different from the polished theatricality of many early sound actors, became one of his greatest strengths. With films like A Farewell to Arms, 1932, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, 1936, Sergeant York, 1941, and High Noon, 1952, he developed an unmistakable persona. The principled man who speaks softly but stands firm, the reluctant hero who finds courage in conscience rather than bravado. His performances resonated deeply with audiences who saw in him a reflection of honesty, decency, and the quiet resolve they admired in themselves or aspired to embody. Cooper's accolades matched his enormous popularity. He won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actor and received a 3rd honorary Oscar for his enduring contribution to the art of film. Yet even more impressive than the awards was the breadth of his influence. Actors from later generations, among them Clint Eastwood, Kevin Costner, and Daniel Day-Lewis, openly admired Cooper's ability to command attention through restraint rather than excess. His craft demonstrated the power of minimalism, showing that a single thoughtful glance, a shift in posture, or a subtly delivered line could speak volumes. Beyond the screen, Cooper was known for his low-profile lifestyle and unassuming nature. Despite his celebrity, he maintained a grounded, almost shy personality, preferring simple pleasures over Hollywood extravagance. Friends and colleagues often remarked on his loyalty, humility, and gentle manner, qualities that made him not only a beloved actor, but also a cherished human being. His friendships with Ernest Hemingway, James Stewart, and many others revealed a man who valued deep connections and intellectual curiosity as much as he valued his craft. Gary Cooper's marriage to Veronica Balfe, known to friends and within Hollywood's social circles as Rocky, stands as one of the most defining and stabilizing chapters of his personal life, offering a revealing look at the private man behind the stoic, understated screen legend. The couple married in 1933, at a time when Cooper's star was rapidly ascending in the film industry, and their union marked the beginning of a partnership that would endure through triumphs, separations, reconciliations, and the intense public scrutiny that came with fame. Veronica, a poised and elegant New York socialite who had grown up in a world of privilege and refinement, carried herself with a quiet confidence that complemented Cooper's own soft-spoken, gentlemanly nature. Her background in equestrian sports and her brief foray into acting had already placed her on the fringes of Hollywood life. But it was her intelligence, grace, and sense of independence that drew Cooper to her more than anything else. Their wedding became a major social event, attended by a blend of Hollywood figures and East Coast elites, symbolizing the merging of two very different worlds. Though Cooper was often characterized as the rugged everyman of the American West on screen, off-screen, he found himself captivated by Veronica's cultured upbringing and her ability to navigate both high society and Hollywood with ease. In many ways, she was a grounding force, a woman who could reinforce his sense of dignity while challenging him to grow beyond the laconic persona that had become his trademark. She introduced him to circles of artists, writers, and intellectuals who would widen his perspective and enrich his personal relationships. Throughout their marriage, Veronica maintained a dignified presence, especially during the difficult periods when Cooper's infidelities, most famously with actress Patricia Neal, threatened the stability of their household. Despite the emotional strain such episodes brought, she remained deeply committed to Cooper, refusing to allow the turbulence of fame to erode her sense of loyalty or the foundation they had built together. Her resilience became a defining characteristic of their marriage, reflecting her belief that the man she had married was far more complex and tender than the public ever knew. She stayed by his side not out of dependence, but out of a profound understanding of his vulnerabilities and a desire to protect the quieter, more introspective side of him. The couple welcomed their daughter, Maria, in 1937. And Veronica embraced motherhood with the same devotion she applied to everything else. As Cooper's career expanded into iconic roles that would cement him as one of Hollywood's most enduring stars, she took on the primary role of maintaining their home and shielding their child from the harsher realities of fame. Even during periods when the couple lived semi-separate lives, Veronica ensured that Maria's relationship with her father remained warm, respectful, and full of admiration. In Cooper's final years, as illness began to slowly diminish the vitality that had defined him for decades, Veronica's steadfast presence became even more apparent. She nursed him through his long battle with cancer, providing emotional and physical support with a quiet strength that earned the admiration of family and friends. Her unwavering devotion during this period, even after years marked by emotional distance and personal challenges, served as a testament to the depth of their bond. After his death in 1961, Veronica continued to honor Cooper's legacy with a mixture of dignity and restraint, rarely capitalizing on their marriage for publicity and choosing instead to preserve his memory privately, with grace and loyalty. For many, she remained the woman who had truly understood the soul of Gary Cooper, whose calm, steady presence had balanced his restless nature, and whose love had accompanied him from the height of his stardom to his final days. For decades, Hollywood historians and devoted fans of classic cinema have whispered about the emotional undercurrents between Gary Cooper and Ingrid Bergman, two of the most magnetic and revered stars of the Golden Age. Their chemistry on screen was undeniable, but few realized how deeply Cooper was affected by their time together until a private handwritten note surfaced after his passing. The note, tucked among personal papers and sealed away for years, revealed a candid, almost painfully vulnerable confession that Cooper never dared to express publicly. "I never wanted the world to misunderstand what she meant to me," he wrote, his words carrying the weight of a man who held back more than he ever shared. That simple, heartfelt acknowledgement has now changed the way many view the connection between the two legendary actors. Cooper's note described the remarkable impact Ingrid Bergman had on him, an emotional influence unspoken in interviews, unseen by film studios, and left out of every authorized biography. They had starred together in For Whom the Bell Tolls, a film that not only transformed Cooper's career, but also left him grappling with feelings he never fully resolved. "There was something about Ingrid," Cooper admitted in the note, "something you couldn't hide from, something pure and frightening at the same time." He outlined moments on set when Bergman's dedication, intelligence, and gentleness carved their way into him more deeply than he expected. To him, she wasn't simply a co-star. She was a force of honesty in a town built on illusion. What Cooper found especially overwhelming, according to the confession, was Bergman's authenticity, her refusal to play the Hollywood game, her emotional transparency, and her quiet strength. "She saw right through me," he wrote. "Not the actor, not the cowboy hero, me." Those who have studied Cooper's life know he was a man of contradictions. A shy Montana boy who became an international icon, a private soul forced into the spotlight, a gentleman who carried decades of silent burdens. His note reveals that Bergman recognized these fractures long before anyone else did. Cooper also confessed how deeply the tension between them lingered. Their connection was neither simple nor fleeting, and yet both were bound by circumstances and obligations that prevented anything more than a guarded, almost sacred friendship. "I wished things were different," he acknowledged. "But sometimes life gives you moments, not miracles." These moments, however, stayed with him for the remainder of his life. Even as he navigated the pressures of fame, the expectations of the studio system, and the complexities of his personal relationships, Bergman remained a memory he revisited privately, never exploited, never romanticized publicly, but never forgotten. One of the most striking passages in the note speaks to Cooper's regret. He confessed that he often wished he had shared his feelings with Bergman more openly. "I should have told her what she meant to me," he wrote, an admission that carried years of emotional restraint. "I thought silence was nobility. Maybe it was just fear." That fear, of scandal, of vulnerability, of disrupting both their lives, kept him guarded, even as the affection lingered quietly in the background of his otherwise disciplined public image. Today, as this note reshapes the narrative, fans and historians see Cooper not as the stoic, impenetrable figure Hollywood crafted, but as a man capable of profound emotional depth. His confession illuminates the tender truth behind a legendary on-screen partnership, a connection forged under hot lights and long hours, but remembered with aching clarity long after the cameras stopped rolling. Cooper's final words about Bergman capture this poignantly. "Some people pass through your life. Some stay with you forever. Ingrid stayed." In 1961, Gary Cooper's life came to its heartbreaking close at the age of 60, a moment that stunned Hollywood and left millions of admirers around the world grappling with the loss of one of cinema's most iconic leading men. His death was not sudden, but it carried a profound emotional weight because Cooper had long embodied the rugged, steady, quietly heroic image of the American frontier, an image many hoped would stand forever. His passing marked the end of an era, one built on his understated style of acting, his moral calm, and his uncanny ability to communicate strength without raising his voice. Yet behind that stoic exterior, Cooper had been fighting a devastating battle with prostate cancer, a disease that gradually spread throughout his body, ultimately reaching his lungs and bones. The progression of his illness was slow but relentless, forcing him into periods of painful treatment and long stretches of rest that contrasted sharply with the vitality he showed on screen. By the time the cancer metastasized, his condition had become grave, and those closest to him understood that even his legendary resilience could not overcome the physical toll. When he died, Hollywood mourned deeply. Tributes poured in from co-stars, directors, and fans who had grown up with his films, each reflecting on how Cooper had shaped their sense of courage, dignity, and decency. His funeral was a somber yet reverent occasion, attended by friends from both the film world and his private life, individuals who remembered him less for his fame and more for his kindness, humility, and unpretentious charm. For a time, Cooper was buried in California, close to the world where he had built his illustrious career. The initial decision reflected both convenience and the natural connection he had to the film industry, which had defined decades of his adulthood. His resting place there became a small site of pilgrimage for fans who wanted to leave flowers, prayers, or simple tokens of gratitude to the actor who had shaped generations of cinematic storytelling. However, his wife, Veronica "Rocky" Cooper, eventually made a heartfelt and deeply personal decision regarding her husband's final resting place. After reflecting on his life, their marriage, and the values they shared, she arranged for his body to be moved across the country and reburied in Sacred Heart Cemetery in Southampton, New York. This relocation was not done hastily, but out of a sincere desire to honor what she felt would be a more fitting and peaceful place for him, closer to the East Coast lifestyle he cherished outside of his Hollywood obligations. Sacred Heart Cemetery offered a quieter, more secluded environment, far from the bright lights, industry commotion, and constant attention that had followed him throughout his career. It provided a sanctuary of calm, surrounded by trees, open skies, and the serenity that echoed Cooper's lifelong love of nature and simplicity.